Dako. Nous sommes live. Partagez mon écran. Et c'est parti. Actually, let's do this one in English. Who had interesting vision for spacefaring civilization? D'accord. Several individuals and researchers have presented interesting visions for spacefaring civilization. I have to now remember how to speak English. Grabby, aliens, entering space, creating a spacefaring civilization, Robert Zubrin. Wow. A stage-wise civilization is bounded only by the multiverse and may be absolutely unbounded if no further boundaries are discovered. Whoa. Spacefaring, the Human Dimension, Albert Harrison. Fascinating. This is a book that could broaden your horizon in the widest possible sense. Wow. Okay. Mic check. Okay, we are doing. Sure, perfect. Edgar Mitchell and Robert Starrett envision humanity's destiny as a spacefaring civilization, suggesting that we would go as citizens of Earth with a common vision and mission for the betterment of all mankind. They propose that after early exploratory missions, the first objective should be permanent colonies on the Moon and Mars, funded by a consortium of nations. Ryan Faith discussed the philosophical foundations for human space exploration, highlighting the lack of a clear purpose or telos in NASA's human spaceflight program. He contrasted this with Apollo program's specific goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth, suggesting that a lack of such a defined endpoint could hinder progress. Yakolev outlined 4 advantages. This is really cool. Like the world marches towards this goal of a spacefaring civilization, suddenly everybody's like, hey, now borders don't matter. There is Yakolev, I'm guessing from Russia, there are people from America, there are people from Europe, and the borders no more matter. Already, America is now seen as the place where you build, the place where the builders are at, and everybody's moving towards America, where they have the vision for what's coming for the future. What will be the next thing that will be built? What is the next evolution for humans? And as we start thinking about humanity as a whole, all these borders don't really matter. And that's what we're seeing on Twitter these days. It's all about AI and humanoids and spacefaring and freedom of speech, people being able to openly talk about what they want and their struggles and their needs. The concept of borders, that's the main point, key point. Concept of borders will no more matter. Outline 4 advantages of space habitats over terraforming, including the universal ways of mastering infinite spaces, creating habitats similar to Earth, making space travel a normal part of life, and reducing the risk of global catastrophe. He believed that space biospheres could be accomplished within a reasonable time frame between 2030 and 2050. Lewis J. Hall Jr., Paul Davies, William A. Burrow, and Robert Shapiro have all supported the idea of space colonization as a means to protect humanity from global catastrophes like nuclear warfare or planetary disasters. They propose concepts like the Alliance to Rescue Civilization, aiming to establish an off-Earth backup of human civilization. J. Richard Goth estimated that human civilization could survive for another 7.8 million years, but expressed hope that space colonization could improve the survival prospects of our species, despite his belief that it is not likely to happen. These visions collectively paint a picture of a future where humanity transcends Earth's boundaries, establishing self-sufficient colonies in space driven by a mix of survival instincts, scientific curiosity, and the desire to expand human potential. What are some unique visions? How do Dyson's and Karashev's vision of space civilization differ? What are the advantages of space habitats over terraforming? How might space habitats change the way we live and travel in space? What role does the commercial space sector play in the development of space habitats? Interesting. Alright, let's start from here. University of California Press. Paper book, ebook, Spacefaring, the human dimension. The human dimension. The stars have called us, but only for the past 40 years or so have we been able to respond by traveling in space. This book explores the human side of spaceflight, why people are willing to brave danger and hardship to go into space. This is really cool. Like today we did Ernest Shackleton. It's the same thing. He wanted to just go to the South Pole, North Pole. I was reading in French, so I think it was South Pole. Yeah, Ernest Shackleton really just wanted to go be the first person to go to the South Pole because nobody had ever done that before. And now that we have so much better technology that we can discover anything on Earth. It's the same quest. It's the same quest for space now, where you want to be the first person to go out into space. Why people are willing to brave danger and hardship to go into space, how human culture has shaped past and present missions, and the effects of space travel on health and well-being. A comprehensive and authoritative treatment of a subject, this book combines statistical studies, which case histories, and gripping anecdotal detail as it investigates the phenomenon of humans in space from the early space flights to the missions of tomorrow. Drawing from a strong research base in the behavioral sciences, Harrison covers such topics as habitability, crew selection and training, coping with stress, group dynamics, accidents, and more. In addition to taking a close look at spacefarers themselves, Spacefaring reviews the broad organizational, and political context that shapes shape human progress towards the heaven. With the ongoing construction of the International Space Station, the human journey to the stars continues, and this book will surely help guide the way. Albert A. Harrison, a professor of psychology at the University of California, Davis, is co-author of Living Aloft, Human Requirements for Extended Space Flight, and From Antarctica to Outer Space, Life in Isolation and Confinement. Wow. And author of After Contact, the Human Response to Extraterrestrial Life. Hmm. Intéressant. Intéressant. Tell me about, or give me a summary of the book. From Antarctica to Outer Space, Life in Isolation and Confinement. Ooh, what is this? From Antarctica to Outer Space, Life in Isolation, Confinement. From Antarctica to Outer Space, Life in Isolation, Confinement. Through first-hand accounts and research reviews. Why I cannot read this? Okay, better. Through first-hand accounts and research reviews and exploration of the psychological, social, and cultural aspects of life in Antarctica, submarines, remote national parks, outer space, and other settings characterized by isolation, confinement, deprivation, 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 and risk. The book focuses on key theoretical research and practical issues and encourages the application of scientific principles to promote human well-being in unusual environments. Studies aimed at investigating the effects of personnel personnel selection and training, environment design, and social factors on mental health, performance, and mission outcomes are discussed. Recommendations are offered for advanced behavioral theories, research, and applications in outer space and analogous terrestrial settings. Interesting. The Fallen Sky. From Earth analogs to space, learning how to boldly go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. From Antarctica to Outer Space is a book that delves into psychological and behavioral aspects of living in extreme isolation and confinement. Here is a summary based on source results. Purpose and scope. The book aims to revitalize and encourage behavioral research in both spaceflight and polar environments. Focusing on the human facet of life in isolated and confined settings. It provides first-hand accounts and research reviews too. It's very interesting. Like we read about, who did we read about? I watched a video about the guy who was the first one to cross the Atlantic with, he was the first person to have the idea that okay, we can construct a plane that can fly across the Atlantic from New York to London or Paris, uh, and that was the first guy. I believe he was the only one because others were scared. It's not like many people tried, many people crashed and died. No, no, no. It's only one guy who really wanted to do it, who really wanted to take on this challenge, and he actually did it. That is very interesting. There are not going to be many people who are even going to try it because it's so hard and it can cause death, it can cause loss of life. First-hand accounts and research reviews to introduce readers to the challenges and experience of individuals in such environments. The book explores how people adapt to and cope with unique conditions of isolation, whether it's in the harsh, cold environment of Antarctica or the confined, zero-gravity conditions of space. Key themes include the psychological effects of isolation, the strategies for maintaining mental health, and the social dynamics that emerge in these settings. Social dynamics that emerge in these settings. This is very interesting. Like we have already seen through many movies about how, what do they call it? Self cannibalization, maybe that's the term, but we've already learned about that crazy amounts. mm. The book discusses how individuals manage to hold onto their sanity and find purpose in extreme conditions. Relevance: the insights from this book are not only applicable to space exploration but also to understanding human behavior in other isolated environments like prisons or during pandemics, where individuals face similar challenges of confinement and limited social interaction. Significance: by examining life in these extreme environments, the book contributes to the understanding of human resilience, adaptation, and the psychological preparation necessary for future space missions or any situation involving prolonged isolation. The book contributes to the understanding of human resilience, adaptation, and the psychological preparation necessary for future space missions or any situation involving prolonged isolation. Valuable resource for researchers, psychologists, and anyone interested in the human experience under extreme conditions, offering both historical context, historical context and practical insights into managing life in isolation and confinement. What are the main challenges faced by individuals in isolation and confinement? Mental health issues. Prolonged isolation can lead to a range of mental health problems, including anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, and psychosis. The lack of meaningful human contact can cause isolation syndrome, characterized by cognitive disturbance, per- perceptual distortions, paranoia, and self harm. Physical health effects. Isolation can also impact physical health, increasing the risk for conditions like fractures, vision loss, and chronic pain. Wow. Impact physical health, increasing the risk for conditions like fractures, vision loss, and chronic pain. The psychological trauma and loneliness associated with confinement can exacerbate these physical health issues. Social withdrawal and interpersonal conflict. In confined groups, interpersonal conflict often becomes the greatest source of stress. For those living alone, the lack of external supports and social interaction can be particularly distressing. Cognitive impairments. Isolation can lead to problems with attention, concentration, memory, and impulse control. Individuals may experience hallucinations, paranoia, and a progressive inability to tolerate ordinary stimuli. Sleep disturbance. Sleep loss, circadian desynchronization, and work overload can compound the issues of isolation, leading to decreased performance and adverse health outcomes. Increased risk of suicidal ideation indicates that both living alone and feeling of loneliness are strongly associated with suicide attempts and suicidal ideation. The effects of isolation often persist even after individuals return to the general population or are released from confinement, affecting their ability to reintegrate into society. Older adults, those with pre-existing mental health conditions, are and individuals with smaller social networks are particularly vulnerable to adverse effects of isolation and confinement. Wow. Wow. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Let's go back to spacefaring civilization. Common vision and mission for the betterment of all mankind. They propose that after early exploratory missions, the first objective should be permanent colonies. Apollo 14. The way of the explorer. The universe and consciousness. Significant contribution to the field of space exploration, consciousness studies, and the philosophical implications of human spaceflight. American astronaut. Mm. Edgar Mitchell. Edgar Mitchell. Mitchell. American astronaut, the sixth person to walk on the moon as part of the Apollo 14 mission in 1971. His experience in space profoundly influenced his views on consciousness and the interconnectedness of all things. Here are some key points about Mitchell. Quantum hologram theory of consciousness, along with Robert Starrett's developed a theory that views information as fundamental to the universe, suggesting that all material objects and organisms store and emit information waves that can be processed by the brain. This theory posits that human consciousness can also emit waves that shape reality. This theory posits that human consciousness can also emit waves that shape reality. Institute of Noetic Sciences. After leaving NASA, Mitchell founded this institute to study consciousness and its potential effects on reality, exploring phenomena like ASP and the nature of consciousness itself. Vision for space exploration. Believe that humanity's destiny is to become a spacefaring civilization, advocating for a common vision and mission for the betterment of mankind. He proposed that after our exploratory missions, the first objective should be permanent colonies on the moon and Mars, funded by a consortium of nations. Robert Starretts has collaborated with Mitchell on various projects, particularly in the realm of consciousness and space exploration. Collaboration with Mitchell. Starretts worked with Mitchell on the quantum hologram theory of consciousness, contributing to the idea that information is as fundamental to the universe as matter or energy. Advocacy for space exploration. Shares Mitchell's vision for humanity's future in space, emphasizing the need for a collective effort to establish permanent human presence beyond Earth. Together, they have explored the philosophical and scientific implications of space exploration, consciousness, and the interconnectedness of all things, pushing the boundaries of traditional scientific paradigms. What role does information play in the universe according to Mitchell and Starretts? Is the universe part of a larger mind? The construction of reality, Big Bang, quantum energy, information, field, universal consciousness, all time, implicate order, rebirth, cosmos, information, observers, participants, vibration, wave, superpositions, non-locality, uncertainty, quantum field, zero-point energy, brain as interface, individual consciousness, culture, memes, mental evolution, free will, choice, human intelligence, evolution of brain, all time, reincarnation, PSI, ESP, matter, elements, particle, entanglement, information network, universum, inhabitable planets, entropy, syntropy, biological evolution, intelligent life, humanity, science, natural laws, artificial intelligence, human technology. Ooh, this is cool. The construction of reality, time, space, info. Information plays a fundamental role in the universe comparable to the roles of matter and energy. Quantum hologram theory of consciousness. Mitchell and Starretts developed the QHTC, which posits that information is as fundamental to the universe as matter or energy. They hypothesize the quantum hologram is nature's built-in information storage and retrieval mechanism, which has been in use since the dawn of time. This theory suggests that all material objects and organisms stored and emit information waves that can be processed by the brain, shaping reality. Holographic properties. The QHTC views the brain as a holographic processor, where information is stored and processed holographically. This means that the brain responds to information contained in the holographic image of a perceived physical object, allowing for a three-dimensional perception of reality. Interconnectedness. Mitchell and Starrett's theory implies that all matters in the universe is interconnected through information. Quantum emissions from any material entity carry information about the event history of the emitting matter's quantum states non locally, suggesting a universal information field. Wow. Implies that all matter in the universe is interconnected through information. Quantum emissions from any material entity carry information about the event history of the emitting matter's quantum states non locally, suggesting a universal information field. Consciousness and information. They propose that consciousness arises from an interneuronal flow of information, perturbing local quantum gravity, which is instrumental in the reduction of coherent quantum states to experience. This suggests that consciousness is an expression of an underlying non-local quantum field with holographic properties. Evolution, evolution, evolution et information. The theory also posits that universal consciousness contained the recipe for biological evolution, implying that information was instrumental in the evolutionary creation of conscious observers. Complementary unity. Mitchell and Starrett treat mind matter as a complementary unity where information is a central axis relating the universe, human connections, and consciousness as an information tool for exploring reality. In summary, Mitchell and Starrett's vision elevates information to a primary constituent of the universe alongside matter and energy, suggesting that the universe itself can be understood as an information processing system where consciousness emerges from the interaction with this universal information field. How does the quantum hologram theory explain the origins of consciousness? Okay, now we are getting into too much vague things. It's hard to, yeah, sometimes you just get lost what is happening. Treat mind matter as a complementary unity where information is a central axis relating to the universe, human connections, and consciousness as an informational tool for exploring reality. Sensations, thoughts, emotions, quantum non-locality, special, relativistic, causality, quantum measurement, and macroscopic realism, quantum gravity, binding problem of consciousness, binding problems of physics, physics of consciousness, universe and time, theory of everything, TOE, holographic phase physics of early universe leaves imprint on cosmic microwave background, seed formation of stars and galaxies in late time universe, electromagnetic consciousness field theories, EM field generation, field is internally recurrent, Benjamin Libet conscious mental field, human consciousness, elementary human consciousness, consciousness of change, unchange, inclusion, exclusion, grand unification theory, space and time scale, invariance, hologram, direction of time, transcendence, transcendence of natural laws, possibility to mathematically describe nature, laws, phenomena, and experiences. 3O universe. Consciousness has structural and functional similarities to a hologram. This theory posits that the brain processes information in a manner analogous to how a hologram encodes and reconstructs images. The brain is seen as a holographic processor where information is stored and processed holographically, allowing for a three-dimensional perception of reality. Quantum hologram is described as the holographic image stored non-locally in the zero-point field when an internal holographic representation in the mind resonates with an external object's non-local emissions, recognition occurs. This process is likened to how a bat or dolphin recognizes objects through sonar echoes, suggesting that perception and intentionality are fundamental aspects of consciousness. Duality, consciousness. QHTC identifies two basic pairs of duality consciousness, change, unchange, and inclusion, exclusion. These pairs create a hologram described by the holographic action, which in turn describes the possible information, energy, and matter that can be manifested by human consciousness. Holographic action is derived as a mathematical formula expressing the maximum amount of information created by human consciousness. From this action, one can study all possible natural laws and phenomena observed by human consciousness, suggesting that consciousness itself shapes reality. Emergence of consciousness. The theory proposes that consciousness emerges through the hierarchy of holographic surfaces in accordance with the holographic principle. This principle states that the information content of a volume of space can be described by a theory that operates on its boundary. Consciousness, therefore, is seen as an emergent property of the interaction between quantum and classical realms, with the brain acting as the center of this experience. Quantum entanglement and non locality. The theory suggests that quantum entanglement allows for instantaneous interaction between various elements of the brain, facilitating the emergence of consciousness. This non local interaction is crucial for the holistic and interconnected nature of conscious experience. Mathematical foundation. QHTC provides a mathematical framework to study the relationship between the information encoded in DNA or brain structure and the field created by them, suggesting that consciousness is not just a product of brain activity but an integral part of the universe's information processing. In summary, the quantum hologram theory of consciousness explains the origins of consciousness by proposing that it arises from the brain's ability to process information holographically through the interaction of quantum and classical realms and the fundamental duality of consciousness. This theory integrates quantum mechanics, holography, and consciousness into a unified framework, suggesting that consciousness is an emergent property of the universe's information structure. Yakovlev. 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 Let's go. Mm. Tell me more. It's really interesting. Like, this is what happens when, like, how many people actually stepped, placed their foot on the moon? Because when it's like less than 10 people, right? Like 10 people, let's say. These 10 people have experienced something that none of the billions of people who stepped, who took birth, none of the billions of humans that were ever born on this earth have done. They did something that they are few. There's just 10 of the billions of humans that have ever lived on earth. It must be a crazy experience. Like, when you do something like that, two things happen. Number one, you really start thinking about what really matters now that I've done this, because you did something really hard. You did something that not many people have actually, not many people could even think about doing. And number two, once you do this, you start thinking bigger. You think, what's next? What's next? That's crazy. That's crazy. Yakovlev outlined four key advantages of space habitats over terraforming. Universal way of mastering infinite spaces. Infinite spaces. Whoa, look at this. Look at this. Kepler. What do they call it? Kepler Society or something. Universal way of mastering infinite spaces. Space habitats provide a method for humanity to explore and inhabit the vast expanses of the cosmos, both within our solar system and beyond. Unlike terraforming, which is limited to specific planetary bodies, space habitats can be constructed anywhere in space, utilizing resources delivered by robots from planets and satellites, creating habitats similar to Earth. Space habitats can be designed to closely mimic Earth's environment, allowing humans to escape the physical degradation associated with living under different gravitational conditions. This includes the ability to create a protective magnetic field, which is easier in a controlled habitat than on a planet, making space travel a normal part of life. At space habitats, the transfer between worlds and resource sources would become routine rather than a dangerous expedition. This normalization of space travel would make it more accessible and less of an extraordinary event, akin to how sailors once viewed long sea voyages, reducing the risk of global catastrophe by establishing space habitats. The probability of humanity's extinction or degradation due to a global catastrophe on Earth is significantly reduced. Space habitats can be constructed more quickly than terraforming a planet, providing a faster means to ensure the survival of human species. These advantages highlight the potential of space habitats to not only expand human presence in space but also to safeguard our species against existential threats, making them a compelling alternative to the more time consuming and resource intensive process of terraforming. Some habitats can be constructed more quickly than terraforming, providing a faster means to ensure the survival of human species. Very interesting. Actually, let's look into this. So this photo, it will take us somewhere. Where do we go? Where we at? Where we at? If human beings decide to colonize the solar system, what would be the best way to do it? Settle on planets where the environment needs work, or build giant stations in space that can see to all our needs? According to some, humanity's future lies in space. Wow, the second it says China. In addition, in addition to the proposals from nations like China, which have announced plans to establish an outpost on the moon in the next decade, some private aerospace companies are looking to make regular trips to moon and beyond a reality. Someday, this could lead to ventures like space tourism, where customers can book a trip to orbit the moon and even Mars, and even the creation of commercial space stations and lunar and Martian colonies. For generations, human beings have fantasized about the day when people could live on the moon or Mars. With all the developments in the past decade or so, we're coming to the point where some of these ideas are starting to look more feasible. This begs the question, how will human beings live in space over the long haul? Should we be planting our roots in the soil of other planets and altering them and or ourselves to ensure survival, or should we look to creating orbiting habitats with microclimates and artificial gravity? In terms of time, effort, and accommodation, are space habitats the way to go? And for strictly cost benefit analysis, is it a better option than colonizing planets, moons, and the celestial objects? O'Neill, O'Neill cylinder, right? Not Kepler. During the Planetary Science Vision 2050 workshop, which took place in February 2017 on NASA's headquarters in Washington, D.C., these conversations have already happened in 2017 in Washington, D.C. Scientists from all over the world came together to share research and presentations about the future of humanity in space. It was here that Valery Yakovlev, an astrophysicist and hydrogeologist from the Laboratory of Water Quality in Kharkiv, Ukraine, presented a paper titled Mars Terraforming the Wrong Way. Rather than colonizing and transforming the various bodies of the solar system, he argued humanity should instead construct space habitats, addressing the idea of establishing a permanent colony on Mars. A radical obstacle to this is the unavailability of human beings to live in conditions of the reduced gravity of the moon and Mars being in their earthly bodies, at least in the next decades. If the path of space exploration is to create a colony on Mars, and furthermore the subsequent attempts to terraform the planet, it will lead to the unjustified loss of time and money and increase the known risk of human civilization. Surface habitats and terraforming do not address the main challenges of colonizing space. His concern is that rather than focusing on how to get there or how we intend to create the necessary infrastructure, the main challenge of living in space comes down to the difficulty of having babies in space. Whoa. The hazards, let's face it. There are no shortages of hazards when it comes to living in space. Living in a sealed, pressurized tin can, that is the only thing between occupants and the vacuum of space. There's also all manner of things that can kill you. Meteoroids are one danger. Small particles of space debris pose a threat to spacecraft. Tiny and weighing less than a gram, they can reach tremendous speeds and generate a significant force of impact. 36,000 kilometers per hour speed. One individual impact are not likely to rupture a spacesuit or the hull of a spacecraft or space station. Long term exposure can cause significant wear and tear. Radiation in space. Earth's atmosphere and its protective magnetic field, human beings in developed nations such as the United States are exposed to 0.31 rem of background radiation with another per year from artificial source. However, beyond our atmosphere and magnetosphere, astronauts are exposed to much higher levels of solar radiation and galactic cosmic rays. Astronauts aboard the ISS for 6 months are exposed to doses of ionizing radiation in the range of 50 to 2000 MSV. Upper limit of 500 MSV per year for astronauts, which is the highest annual dose for which there are no observed increase in rate at which cancer occurs in humans. Prolonged exposure dramatically increase the risk of acute radiation. Oh wow, look at this. Artist concept of the von Braun wheel. Long-term effects of low gravity. Long-term exposure to microgravity, which astronauts experience in orbit, or lower levels of gravity can have detrimental effects on all living creatures that have evolved in Earth normal gravity. Multiple studies have been conducted into this phenomenon largely aboard the ISS. Seminal twin study, where astronauts Scott and Mark Kelly were used for comparative analysis, while Scott Kelly acted as a test subject and spent a year aboard the ISS. Mark Kelly remained on Earth and acted as a control. Multiple physicists were conducted. Mark Kelly and Scott Kelly. Multiple physicals were conducted on both astronauts after Scott Kelly returned to Earth. In addition to muscle and bone density loss, the studies showed the long duration missions to space led to diminished organ function, eyesight, and even genetic changes. Readapting to Earth normal gravity can also be arduous and painful for astronauts. At present, it is entirely unknown whether or not medical advances can counteract these effects. It is also unknown whether or not rehabilitation strategies such as those involved centrifuge will be effective over long periods of time. This is really cool. This reminds me of when astronauts come back from space and then they are talking or something, they're holding a pen or something, and they just drop it because in space it's supposed to be floating around. And that they forget that it's gonna drop because you're back on Earth. This is very similar to what I'm experiencing right now, where because I spend so much time speaking in French, there are some words where like civilization, like my first tendency is to speak in French because in French it just flows. Civilisation, something like that. I think it's easier. It's not easier in French. It just flows better in French. So my first tendency is just to speak the French way. That is so interesting. Prevent physical degeneration, but they would also possibly be able to have children in space without additional worries about the effects of microgravity. Number of options. History of the concept goes back to the beginning of the 20th century, and also where it's also here that a great debt is owed to Constantine. We read about Constantine Tsiolkovsky, 1857 to 1935, one of the founding fathers of rocketry and aeronautics. 1903, he published a study titled Investigation of Outer Space Rocket Devices, where he suggested using rotation to create artificial gravity in space. 28, Slovene rocket engineer Herman Potočnik released his seminal book, The Problem of Space Travel, the Rocket Motor. Here he suggested building a spinning wheel-shaped station with a 30-meter diameter that could be placed in geostationary orbit. 29. Irish scientist John Desmond Bernal wrote The World, the Flesh, and the Devil, an inquiry into the future of the three enemies of the rational soul, in which he described a holospherical space habitat measuring 16 kilometers, filled with air, able to accommodate a population 20 to 30,000 people. In the 50s, German-American rocket scientist Werner von Braun Wheel, and Willie Lay updated the idea as part of an article in Spread for Collier's magazine titled Man Will Conquer Space Soon. Von Braun and Lee envisioned a three-deck rotating wheel with a diameter of 76 meters. This wheel would revolve at 3 RPM to provide artificial gravity and act as a staging point for spacecraft headed to Mars. 54. German scientist Hermann Oberth described the use of massive rotating cylinders for space travel in his book People into Space, New Projects for Rockets and Space Travel. 75. NASA's Ames Research Center and Stanford University jointly held the first annual NASA Summer Study. This 10-week program saw professors, technical directors, and students come together to create a vision of how people might someday live in a large space colony. This is crazy that they were thinking about this in 75. Even before that, like 100 years ago. The result of this was the Stanford Torus, and they 65 and 75 by the time they had done Moon, so they were like excited for what's next. That is crazy. Like, what is the reason that we didn't move faster after landing on Moon? Designed for a wheel-like space station that would house 10,000 people and would rotate to provide the sensation of either Earth normal or partial gravity. 74. While teaching at Princeton University, physicist Gerard O'Neill proposed the concept of rotating cylinder in outer space, which was detailed in September 74 article of Physics Today, The Colonization of Space. The idea was a result of a cooperative study where O'Neill's students were tasked with designing stations that would allow the colonization of space by the 21st century using materials extracted from the moon and near-Earth asteroids. O'Neill expanded on this in his 76 book, The High Frontier, Human Colonies in Space, emphasizing how these types of islands in space could be built using existing technology. We now have the technological ability to set up large communities in space, he wrote. Communities in which manufacturing, farming, and all other human activities could be carried out. According to his description, the cylinder would consist of two counter-rotating cylinders measuring 8 km in diameter and 32 km long. This would provide artificial gravity, while also cancelling out any gyroscopic effects. 90. Several updated versions of these concepts were proposed, thanks in large part to the Space Settlement Contest. Updated version of O'Neill cylinders, Bernal spheres, and wheel stations that would take advantage of the latest developments in technology and material science. 2011. Mark Haldeman and Edward Henderson of NASA's Technology Applications Assessment Team designed a concept for a rotating wheel space station. This was known as the Non-Atmospheric Universal Transport, intended for LIN, the United States Exploration Nautilus X. Concept was originally proposed for long-duration missions 1 to 24 to limit the effects of microgravity on human health. More recently, the idea was explored as a possible sleep quarters module that would be integrated with the ISS. This would make it possible to experiment with artificial gravity without destroying the usefulness of the ISS for experiments in microgravity. The research could also help refine concepts for spacecraft that are able to simulate gravity using a centrifuge. NASA began working to fulfill their vision for the future of human space exploration, now known as their Moon to Mars program. This program envisioned the development of a new generation of heavy launch vehicle spacecraft and space stations that would allow for human exploration beyond Earth. A central part of the mission architecture is the Deep Space Gateway, an orbiting habitat which would be built in cislunar space. This habitat would facilitate future missions to the moon for NASA, other space agencies, and commercial partners, while also serving as a staging point for missions to Mars. Lunar Gateway. Proposed configuration calls for the creation of a modular station consisting of 8 elements contributed by NASA and international partners. Considerable amounts of building materials, fuel, and construction robots. SpaceX Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy can deliver payloads to LEO at a rate of on the development of fully reusable vehicles as well as small cell launch services and single stage to orbit rockets has led to a significant reduction in launch costs. Sending all the necessary materials and equipment into orbit would still be monumental expenditure. A possible solution would be to extract materials from near Earth asteroids, or the moon using robotic spacecraft and haulers. These could then be brought to Earth orbit to be processed into building materials and assembled using construction robots. However, this would still require that a megaton worth of materials and machinery be sent into space to build these robots and facilities. The costs become even more prohibitive the farther away these habitats are being built. Way of the future. Oh shit, look at this. Artist's concept, bro. You literally built San Francisco over here. Whoa. Okay. This is another advantage of creating space habitats. While the initial investment to create them in orbit around Earth or in cislunar space would be immense, these habitats could serve as stepping stones to more distant locations. Basically, having these habitats in place between Earth and the moon would mean that spacecraft could be assembled in orbit using materials harvested from space. They would also be able to launch from these stations rather than having to take off from Earth. This would mean significant reductions in terms of the number of launches from Earth, not to mention the amount of fuel needed to mount deep space missions. From the Earth Moon system, robotics, spacecraft, and crews could potentially be sent to Mars, the asteroid belt, and to the outer and inner solar system to build additional habitats. Wow, wow, wow. Easier it will be to expand. The more locations we have colonized with space habitats, the easier it will be to expand humanity's presence across the solar system. However, it is unlikely that future generations could choose one option over the other. Really cool. Really cool piece. Okay, this is really cool. This is really cool. Okay, next. They propose concepts like alliance to rescue civilization aiming to establish an off-Earth backup. Bruh. Off-Earth backup. Tell me more. Lack of clear purpose. 4 stages. Terraforming. Space habitats. We're looking at this one. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, okay, let's see, let's see. Search for images. Let's go. Wow. Nuclear rocket ship. Louis J. Hall Jr., Paul Davis, William E. Burrow, and Robert Shapiro have all advocated for space colonization as a strategy to safeguard humanity against global catastrophe. His article in Foreign Affairs, summer 1980, Hale argued that space colonization could protect humanity in the event of global nuclear warfare. He envisioned space colonies as a means to ensure the survival of the human species if Earth were to become uninhabitable due to such catastrophic events. Davy supposed the idea is that if a planetary catastrophe threatens human survival on Earth, a self-sufficient colony could reverse colonize Earth. A self-sufficient colony could reverse colonize Earth, restoring human civilization. This concept implies that space colonies could serve as a backup, ready to repopulate and rebuild Earth if necessary. A self sufficient colony could recolonize Earth, restoring human civilization. Burroughs, along with Robert Shapiro, proposed the Alliance to Rescue Civilization, ARC. Alliance to Rescue Civilization, a private project aimed at establishing an off Earth backup of human civilization. This initiative was intended to preserve human knowledge, culture, and genetic material in the event of global catastrophe. Shapiro biochemists collaborated with Alliance to Rescue Civilization. Alliance to Rescue Civilization. That's really cool. It's really cool. Shapiro biochemists collaborated with Burroughs on the ARC project, emphasizing the importance of creating a repository of human civilization's essence in space to ensure its survival. These thinkers collectively proposed that space colonization is not just about expanding human presence but also about creating a safety net for humanity. They argue that survival of human civilization, space colonization provides an alternative location for human life to continue in case of natural or human-made disasters on Earth. This aligns with the views of Stephen Hawking, who predicted that without space colonization, humanity faces extinction within the next 1,000 years. The R project specifically aimed to establish a backup of human civilization, including DNA samples of all life on Earth, to ensure that even if Earth were to suffer a catastrophic event, human knowledge and genetic material could be preserved. Global catastrophe protection. Space colonies could serve as a refuge from global catastrophes like nuclear warfare, pandemics, or asteroid impacts, providing a means for humanity to survive and potentially repopulate Earth. Technological and environmental benefits. The process of colonizing space would also drive technological advancements that could be, could benefit Earth, such as sustainable energy solutions, recycling technologies, and environmental protection measures. Genetic sequencing and cloning. Scientists are investigating genetic sequencing, cloning, and stem cell research to adapt these technologies for use on the moon. Wait, what is this? What? Doomsday Arc. What is Doomsday Arc? Initially tended by robots, ensuring it's. I think it's different. Is there an update on is there someone today working on Alliance to Rescue Civilization? Dialogue of Civilization, no. Yes, there are individuals and organizations currently working on the concept of Alliance to Rescue Civilization. ARC 2025, the ARC conference is set to return in Feb 25, focusing how can we recover the best from our cultural and philosophical history? What are the defining choices we now face as a society, and how can we create a better, hope-filled future? This event aims to gather 4,000 people in London to discuss civilization renewal, governance, free markets, human innovation, and the role of technology in serving humanity. The conference is part of a broader initiative to explore and promote ideas for human flourishing and prosperity. ARC research is actively involved in advancing education, promoting research, and developing ideas about the keys to human flourishing and prosperity. They publish reports, articles, and academic papers, and are preparing to release a book titled The Best of Our Inheritance, which encapsulates the values and ideas shaping ARC's mission. The original ARC organization was absorbed into the Lifeboat Foundation in 2007, continues to work on similar goals, focusing on safeguarding humanity against existential risk, including establishment of off-Earth backups of human civilization. Off-Earth backups of human civilization. The concept of Doomsday Ark, which aligns with Ark's mission, is being explored by scientists at New York University. This project involves creating a lunar vault to store DNA samples of all life on Earth, along with instructions for survival and repopulation in case of global catastrophe. I think it would be much easier just to like, yeah, have like the entire model, all the data that a ChatGPT, Grok, Claude they have been trained on, and just put it on Moon. But it's crazy that Grok 3 just released today, and I'm just thinking right now that it had comparisons against Gemini, it had comparisons against OpenAI O3. I don't think it mentioned Anthropic Claude. So it seems like Claude is lagging behind. Claude is really lagging behind. What happened with the Arc project after it was absorbed in a Life 4 Foundation? Are there current organizations similar to Arc that are actively working other disaster prevention initiatives? What are the main criticisms? What are the main criticisms? That's a good question. That's a good question. Disadvantage to humanities, arts, and social science. Some stakeholders express concerns that the Discovery Project scheme, part of ARC, disadvantaged humanities, arts, and social sciences research in comparison to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics during assessment processes. Lack of clarity and concerns about objective. Concerns about the clarity of the scheme's objectives and intended outcomes, particularly regarding the balance between supporting basic research, including applied research and translational benefits. Lack of clarity was seen as a potential issue in the implementation and assessment processes. Limitations in collecting comprehensive quality assured data on discovery projects application making it difficult to establish consistent and comparable longitudinal data sets on scheme performance. Child welfare settings. Difficulty in recruiting resource parents due to other commitments and the length of the training commitment, which limited time and resources in child welfare agencies. I'm not sure if you're talking the same ARC. The ARC project was criticized for its opposition to any top-down globalist view and policies involving compulsion, suggesting a resistance to certain forms of governance and policy making. There were claims that carbon emissions had declined and that renewable energy sources were not reliable, which was criticized for promoting climate science denial. Faced skepticism regarding its economic growth and infrastructure aspects with some stakeholders. Okay, I'm not sure. We are mixing a bunch of ARC projects over here. ARC is a very common name. Alliance for Rescue Civilization. That's a good name. That's a good acronym. That's a good acronym. Let's go. Alonzi, Princeton University astrophysicist, has made significant contribution to the discussion of the future of humanity through the application of the Copernican principle to estimate the lifespan of human civilization. Interesting. The Berlin Wall's future duration will be between 1/3 and 3 times its past duration. The prediction will be true for all moments in the shaded part of the wall's existence. Berlin Wall built, Berlin Wall ceases to exist. Do we understand this concept? No. God's work on the doomsday argument suggests that based on the principle of indifference, there is 95% confidence that humans will go extinct between 5100 and 7.2 million years in the future. This estimate is derived from the assumption that we are not observing humanity's existence from a highly privileged point in time, either at the dawn of a long-lasting civilization or at the end of a short-lived one. Survival prospects. Despite his estimation of a potential extinction timeline, God expressed hope that space colonization could improve the survival prospects of our species. He believes that by establishing self-sustaining colonies beyond Earth, humanity could better withstand catastrophic events that might otherwise lead to our extinction. However, God also acknowledges the significant challenges associated with space colonization. He notes that while the idea is compelling, the practical implementation faces numerous obstacles, including the harsh conditions of space, the need for advanced technology, and the potential for unforeseen risk. God's argument differs from other versions of the doomsday argument in that he does not assume a vague prior probability distribution from the total number of humans that will ever be born. Instead, he focuses on the increased probability of an early doomsday once one takes into account their birth position regardless of the prior probability distribution. Self-referencing paradox. There's a paradoxical aspect of to God's doomsday argument. If the argument can apply to itself, it can be simultaneously right as a probabilistic argument and probably wrong as a prediction. This suggests that the doomsday argument might be wrong even if the logic is incorrect, given the high probability of even extinction within a relatively short time frame. He also sees space colonization as a potential means to extend our species' longevity. He acknowledges the significant challenges and uncertainties involved in achieving this goal, highlighting the complexity of predicting humanity's future with certainty. Wow. Dako?